I always believed the worst thing family could take from you was peace. But I was wrong. 3 days ago, I opened the door to the house I bought for my parents and found strangers living in it. Not burglars, not squatters, but my own sister, her husband, and kids I barely recognized, acting like they owned everything. And when I stepped inside, the first thing my brother-in-law said to my father was, "This is my house, get out." That's when I realized they hadn't just invaded a home. They had planned something far worse, and I was the only one who knew how to stop it. I didn't grow up imagining that I'd one day have to defend my own parents inside a house I bought for them. Yet there I was, standing in the doorway of a home that should have been filled with nothing but joy, watching my brother-in-law shove my father aside and bark, "This is my house, get out." My mother froze like she'd been struck, her face drained of color, her eyes glossy and frightened, clutching a damp dish towel to her chest like a shield she wasn't sure how to use. My father wouldn't even lift his gaze. He stared at the floor as though it might break beneath him. And Olivia, my sister, stood there smirking, as if she'd always known we'd reach this point, and she was proud she'd pushed us here. I was still holding the celebration cake meant for my parents' anniversary. The frosting was smudged where my thumb had pressed too hard when I froze at Mark's shouting. The keys felt icy in my other hand. For a moment, time simply stopped. I didn't yell, I didn't slam the door, I didn't rush to defend anyone. I just looked at Olivia and Mark, smiled once, calmly, and said something soft enough to make their laughter cut off instantly. They thought they'd won. They had no idea what I had prepared long before they arrived. 2 weeks earlier, everything was lighter, softer. The world felt gentler the day I gave my parents this seaside home. The place was modest, painted a quiet shade of blue, with windows that framed the ocean like artwork. But it was perfect. I'd spent months looking for a house that felt safe, calm, and unshakable. A home my parents could grow old in without fear of rent increases or unexpected notices taped to the door. When I asked them to take a weekend drive with me, my mother assumed we were going out to eat. She even put on earrings. My dad packed fishing gear, convinced we were heading to some hidden pier I'd discovered. They had no clue what was waiting for them. My dad cried first, before we even stepped inside. He ran his hand along the banister like it was a memory he wished he'd had years ago. My mom kept opening cabinets and drawers, inhaling the scent of fresh lemon cleaner and whispering, "It feels like sunshine." I'd worked myself sick saving for this place. Nights coding until my eyes blurred, skipping vacations, skipping dinners. I didn't storm out of that living room. I didn't yank the beer out of Mark's hand or drag Olivia off the couch she'd claimed as if she'd bought it herself. Instead, I placed the cake, still boxed, still meant for joy, on the kitchen counter and inhaled a slow breath. My mother's eyes followed me like she was watching someone carefully step through a minefield. My father didn't look up at all. He sat with his hands pressed against his knees, fingers shaking in tiny, controlled tremors. The sound of cartoons blaring from the TV mixed with the smell of spilled beer and greasy takeout. It didn't smell like my parents' home anymore. It smelled like an invasion. "I'll be back tomorrow," I said quietly. Olivia scoffed like she'd rehearsed it. "Stop being dramatic, Bella. Seriously." Mark lifted his beer toward me in what he probably thought was a charming gesture. "Bring more of that fancy cider when you return. The bubbles are good." I turned away before he could finish the smirk twisting his face. Outside, the sun glittered over the ocean so brightly it felt like an insult. I gripped my steering wheel until my knuckles bleached white. They thought I was leaving because I was overwhelmed. They thought I'd come back and talk it out, maybe cry a little, maybe beg. They didn't know me at all. Not anymore. I didn't drive home. Not directly. 2 blocks away, I parked, turned off the engine, and sat in silence. The adrenaline was still too sharp, too wild, too hot. Anger makes people sloppy, and if there's one thing Olivia always counted on, it was my emotional softness. But I grew up, and softness wasn't going to save my parents. Precision would. I walked the remaining blocks back to my apartment, the cold air clearing my head with every step. Once inside, I didn't collapse onto the couch or cry into my hands. I did what I always do when the world tries to take something from the people I love. I opened my laptop and built a path out. My desktop wasn't filled with photos or games. It was lined with neatly labeled folders, documents I'd collected during the entire process of buying the house. I had saved every receipt, every email, every message, every policy, every HOA clause, and every legal note. I wasn't paranoid. I was raised in a family where being unprepared meant being swallowed. The trust documents were still fresh, signed just days after closing. I opened them with steady fingers. The language was clear. My parents were lifetime beneficiaries of the trust. They had exclusive occupancy. No one, not even me, could override their rights. Mark and Olivia didn't know that, and I planned to use that ignorance like a weapon. Next, I pulled up the pictures from the online listing Olivia and Mark had created. They'd used my photos, my descriptions, my angles, my wording. They hadn't even bothered to change. The moment I stepped through the doorway, the atmosphere hit me like humility before a storm. Thick, tense, soured with the smell of stale beer and entitlement. The same cartoon theme song looped loudly on the TV, drowning out the sound of the ocean outside. It felt surreal that this was the same peaceful house I'd gifted just days ago. Mark was the first to notice me. He froze mid-laugh, beer halfway to his mouth, the smirk on his face collapsing in slow motion. Olivia was sprawled across the couch, legs crossed, one sandal hanging from her toes. Her phone hovered in her hand as she blinked at me like she couldn't believe I'd come back. I didn't give them time to react. I walked straight into the living room and stopped beside the coffee table. "Everyone in here," I said. Not loud, not angry, just controlled. The room shifted. The kids paused their game. Even the dog's ears perked up. My tone wasn't familiar to them, not because I'd never used it before, but because they'd never bothered to hear it before. My father's shoulders slumped further, as if he knew a reckoning was coming. My mother looked small, afraid of the storm she believed I'd brought. But they didn't know the truth. I wasn't the storm. I was the shield. I placed the manila folder on the glass table. Each page inside felt like a brick in a wall I'd spent years learning to build. Mark tried to recover first. "This is my house," he said again, chest puffed. His voice echoed too loudly, too quickly, betraying a thread of nervousness. I didn't look at him. Instead, I opened the folder and slid the first document forward with deliberate calm. "This," I said, tapping the header, "is the recorded deed." Olivia snorted. "Oh, please." I continued as if she hadn't spoken. "The property," I said, "is owned by a trust I established, a trust in which Mom and Dad are lifetime beneficiaries." My father's head lifted slowly. My mother's hand covered her mouth. I placed the second document beside the first. "This is the trust instrument. I'm the trustee, which means I'm legally responsible for protecting my parents' right to live here peacefully." Mark's jaw twitched. "It's still family property," he said. "We're just helping." I slid the next sheet across the table, a printed screenshot of the rental listing he and Olivia had created. "Helping?" I repeated quietly. "You listed the entire home online. Oceanfront, weekend bookings, payment routed directly to your account." My mother gasped. My father's chest fell like the air had been punched out of him. Olivia's smile collapsed completely. That's not... Bella, you're twisting things. I dropped the next page on top of the listing. Text messages. Their text messages. From Olivia. We'll get her to cave if Mom cries. From Mark. Peak season. Free money. The room froze. The kids paused their game. Even the dog's ears perked up. The cartoon on TV suddenly felt grotesque, bright colors plastered over a rotten truth. Mark stepped closer, his face turning red. You're going to call the cops on your own family? Of course not. I don't need the police. I placed the final sheet on the table. The HOA rule prohibiting short-term rentals. Violations, I said, are already reported. Fines will be issued. Your listing is being removed. And I've contacted the board to confirm occupancy rights. Mark's eyes darted between the new keypad and my calm face, fury building like steam in a sealed pot. He wasn't used to losing control, especially not in front of an audience. He had always been the loudest person in the room, and for once, his noise meant nothing. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the beer on his breath. You think you can just walk in here and take over? He hissed. I didn't flinch. I'm not taking over, I said. I'm restoring order. He smirked, but there was panic in his eyes. You can't scare me with papers and locks. I don't need to scare you, I said. Reality already does that. That single sentence silenced him more effectively than shouting ever could. Behind him, Olivia looked small. She was still sitting on the couch, phone in hand, eyes darting between me and her husband, like she couldn't decide whether to join his outrage or disappear completely. Her children stood frozen by the stairs, unsure which version of their mother to trust, the laughing one from last week or the trembling one now. My mother finally broke her silence. Bella, please, let's just calm down. I turned toward her and softened my tone. Mom, I am calm, but calm doesn't mean powerless. She nodded slowly, eyes wet but understanding. For the first time, I saw that she wasn't just scared. She was tired. Tired of decades spent smoothing over Olivia's chaos. Tired of being the peacekeeper in a war that never stopped. Victor finished adjusting the lock, wiped his hands, and looked at me. All done. The new code works. Old keys are useless now. Mark's jaw flexed. You'll regret this, Bella. I already regret something. I regret how long it took me to stop enabling you. He took a step forward, but Victor positioned himself subtly between us. Sir, you might want to step back. I'm just here to finish a job, not referee one. Mark backed off, muttering under his breath, his hands balled into fists. I gathered the papers from the table, stacking them neatly. You'll remove the online listing, you'll refund every booking, and you'll leave your keys on that table. Olivia blinked. You can't just... I can. Because I already have. She looked confused until I held up my phone. On the screen was a confirmation email from the rental platform. Listing removed, account under review. Her face fell. You reported me? I protected my parents. You just happened to be in the way. Olivia's lip trembled. We were only trying to help. Help, I echoed. My voice low but sharp. You helped yourself. To their home, to their peace. You turned a gift into a scheme. My father finally spoke. His voice cracked but carried more strength than I'd heard in years. This house is ours, Mark. Ours. We're staying. Mark turned toward him, eyes wide like he'd just been betrayed by the last person he expected. Old man, you're really going to side with her? Dad didn't hesitate. Yes. For a moment, no one moved. Then my mother reached for his hand. She didn't apologize, she didn't look ashamed. She simply held it, steady and certain. It was the smallest gesture, but it was everything. Mark looked around the room, realizing the shift had already happened. The control he thrived on was gone, stripped away layer by layer, and the house was finally quiet. Not the fragile, temporary quiet my parents used to cling to, but a deeper one. Steady, earned, real. My mother's hands were still trembling slightly as she poured tea, but her shoulders had lowered from her ears. My father sat beside her, fingers wrapped around his mug, absorbing the stillness like it was medicine. And then my phone buzzed. I didn't want to look at it. I already knew who it would be. But ignoring Olivia never made her go away. It only made her louder. So I picked it up. A single message blinked on the screen. "You made Mom cry. I hope you're happy." I stared at the words, a hollow laugh escaping me. It was such an old script, recycled so many times that I could practically predict the punctuation, the accusation, the guilt, the shifting of blame. I didn't reply. I deleted it without hesitation. If Olivia had cared about Mom's tears, she wouldn't have pushed her into emotional corners for 30 years. She wouldn't have used Mom's softness as a lever. She wouldn't have turned my parents' new home into a business opportunity. Mom watched me put the phone down. "Was it Olivia?" she asked, voice soft. "Yes," I said. "Did she say something awful?" "She said what she always says." Mom nodded slowly, pressing her hand to her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You don't need to apologize," I told her gently. "You've been apologizing for her your whole life." A small, sad smile flickered on her face. She looked down at the cup in her hands like she was reading memories in the steam. Dad cleared his throat. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," I said, "we clean up the mess they left, and then we protect this house." Dad leaned back in his chair, a tired smile touching the corner of his mouth. It's been a long time since I slept in a place that felt safe. "You will now," I said. I opened my laptop at the dining table. The HOA confirmation email blinked at the top of my inbox. Next to it was another message from the rental platform, confirming that all illegal bookings had been canceled and every renter had been refunded. I typed a short message to the neighbor's email list. "If you saw unfamiliar cars last week, the confusion has been resolved. No rentals will take place in this home moving forward." I almost added "thank you," but decided against it. I wasn't in the mood to thank anyone for surviving a crisis my sister created. Mom watched me, put the phone down. She placed a plate with a slice of cake in front of me. It was the same cake I had brought yesterday for the anniversary celebration that never happened. The icing was smudged, the edges dented from all the chaos, but it still tasted like lemon and sugar, sharp and sweet. Dad finished his tea and stood slowly, stretching his stiff shoulders. "I'm going to check the deck. Make sure everything is in place." He just had stepped outside when the house softened even more. Mom sank into the chair beside me. I didn't want him to see how scared I was, or how fast Olivia moved in. "Mom." I reached across the table, taking her hand. "You don't have to pretend with me." Her eyes filled again, but the tears didn't fall this time. I stared at the HOA notification for a full 10 seconds before the meaning sank in. Unauthorized complaints? Filed under Olivia's name? Filed after she left? My heartbeat thudded once, slow and heavy, like the house itself was warning me. She's not finished. I opened the email. It was short, blunt, and unsettling. "We have received multiple formal complaints from someone claiming to be a beneficiary of the property. Please contact us immediately." Beneficiary? Olivia was doubling down. She wasn't just trying to save face anymore. She was trying to rewrite the entire legal structure I'd created. Mom noticed my expression. "What happened?" "Nothing yet," I said carefully. "But Olivia's trying something." Dad came down the stairs, rubbing his neck. Something like what? I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure. An uncertainty around Olivia always meant danger. I dialed the HOA number listed in the email. A woman answered on the second ring. "This is Karen from Coastal Palms Association. Are you the trustee?" "Yes," I said. "We've received several emails claiming you illegally removed rightful occupants from the property." My jaw clenched. "And who sent those?" "Someone named Olivia. She's claiming the house is family property, that your parents invited her, and that she had an established residency." I almost left. Olivia had always been manipulative, but this was bold, even for her. "She also submitted a request," Karen continued, "to have you removed as trustee." That made my stomach drop. Removed? As trustee? She wasn't just fighting back, she was going for the root. My voice remained calm. "Did she provide any documentation?" "No," she said, "only emotional statements, but the volume of complaints triggered a review." Of course it did. Olivia knew exactly how to weaponize emotions. She'd spent her whole life perfecting it. Karen hesitated. Normally, the board would wait for more evidence, but she's persistent. Persistent. A polite word for destructive. "Don't worry," I said. "I'll send over the trust documents, the recorded deed, and confirmation of occupancy rights." That would be helpful. Frankly, her messages were intense. "Yes," I said dryly. "That's her style." I hung up. Mom's face was pale again. "She's trying to take the house?" "No," I said firmly. "She's trying to pretend she can." Dad sat heavily in a chair. "We shouldn't have let her in." His voice was thick with shame. I knelt beside him. "You were trying to be kind. Olivia counted on that. This isn't your fault." Mom wrung her hands. "She could come back. She could start this all over again." I shook my head. "Not legally." "But emotionally?" Mom whispered. "Emotionally, she never stops." Her words stung. Not because they weren't true, but because they were too true. I opened my laptop again. I lowered the phone slowly, staring at the screen long after the call ended, as if the words might somehow rearrange themselves into something less cruel. But they didn't. They just sat there, heavy and ugly, echoing the voice of the attorney who had delivered them. "Your sister intends to bring forward an emotional harm complaint against your parents. Not against me. Against them." My mother appeared in the doorway, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Bella?" she asked gently. "Who was it?" I didn't want to tell her. I didn't want to put another weight on shoulders that had carried too much already. But lying never protected anyone. Not in my family. "A lawyer," I said quietly. "Olivia hired one." She blinked, eyes widening. "For what?" "To claim she was removed illegally." I swallowed. "And to accuse you and Dad of causing her emotional distress." Mom's knees buckled slightly, and she grabbed the counter for support. "Emotional distress? We didn't... Bella, we didn't do anything." "I know," I said, rushing to her side. "Mom, listen to me. This is what she does. She changes the story. She makes herself the victim. She does it because it used to work." Tears spilled onto my mother's cheeks. "She's going to drag us into court? Why would she do that to her parents?" I pressed her hands between mine. "Because she thought fear would make us surrender. She thought she could scare us into giving her what she wants." Dad came in behind her. "A lawyer?" he repeated, voice cracking. Is she really going that far? Yes, I said. But she doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. Dad sank into a chair. I should have called her. Maybe we can talk. Dad, no. My voice was firmer than I intended. Talking is how she pulls you back in. She'll twist your words into something she can use. This isn't a conversation anymore. It's a boundary. Mom clutched the back of a chair like she needed something solid. Are you sure we're safe? She whispered. I straightened. Absolutely. Because I was. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because fear didn't matter when someone tried to hurt the people I loved. Not anymore. I opened my laptop again, but this time with a different fire beneath my fingertips. I drafted a message to the attorney who'd called. All allegations are false. This is a trust property. My parents' rights are protected under law. Any further harassment will be addressed legally. I attached copies of the deed, the trust, and the HOA rule again. Then I forwarded everything to our family attorney with a detailed summary. Dad watched me work with a mixture of admiration and guilt. I should have been stronger, he murmured. All those years, Olivia took advantage because I didn't stop her. You protected Mom the best you could. That's enough. He shook his head. You've done more in 1 week than I did in 3 decades. I closed the laptop and knelt beside him. I raised you to be strong, I said softly. You gave me the tools. I just learned how to use them. His eyes filled, but he didn't speak. Mom wiped her face. What happens now, Bella? Do we wait? No, I said. We document everything. Every message, every call, every threat. And we stay calm. Calm? Dad repeated, half laughing. Your sister might drag us to court. And she'll lose. All she's doing is proving to the HOA and the platform that she's unstable. This will backfire. Mom clutched the back of a chair like she needed something solid. Are you sure we're safe? I straightened. Absolutely. Because I was. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because fear didn't matter when someone tried to hurt the people I loved. Not anymore. I opened my laptop again, but this time with a different fire beneath my fingertips. I drafted a message to the attorney who'd called. All allegations are false. This is a trust property. My parents' rights are protected under law. Any further harassment will be addressed legally. I attached copies of the deed, the trust, and the HOA rule again. Then I forwarded everything to our family attorney with a detailed summary. Dad watched me work with a mixture of admiration and guilt. I should have been stronger, he murmured. All those years, Olivia took advantage because I didn't stop her. You protected Mom the best you could. That's enough. He shook his head. You've done more in 1 week than I did in 3 decades. I closed the laptop and knelt beside him. I raised you to be strong, I said softly. You gave me the tools. I just learned how to use them. The message hit me like a punch. Olivia came back. She's standing outside your parents' house right now, and she's not alone. For a second, the world narrowed to the glow of my phone screen. The house felt suddenly smaller, the air tighter, as if the walls themselves sensed another storm approaching. I stood quickly, heart thudding, not with fear, but with a sharp, protective instinct that burned hotter than anything Olivia could summon. Dad's footsteps creaked on the stairs. Bella, what happened? I didn't sugarcoat it. She's outside. Mom gasped. Now? At this hour? I nodded. And she brought someone. Dad's jaw tightened in a way I hadn't seen in years. I'm stepping outside, I said. No, Mom whispered, grabbing my wrist. Bella, she's angry. You don't know who she brought. Let's call the police. I shook my head. Calling the police gives her ammunition. She'll spin it as harassment. Dad stepped forward. We won't let you face her alone. I touched his arm. You don't have to. Just stay behind me. I opened the door. Cold ocean air rushed inside, carrying the smell of salt and pine. The porch light threw a pale glow across the front yard, illuminating Olivia standing near the gate with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, in his 40s, wearing a blazer and a smug expression I'd seen on one type of person too many times, someone who thought paperwork made them invincible. Olivia crossed her arms, chin lifted. There she is, the dictator. Her voice was sharp, brittle, the voice of someone who had spent hours working herself into a righteous fury. Olivia, I said calmly, it's late. Whatever this is, it can wait till morning. No, it can't. You humiliated us. You kicked our children out. You ruined our income. And now, she gestured wildly toward the man beside her. You'll talk to my attorney. So that was him. Not a threat, not a goon, just a lawyer dragged into a family meltdown. He stepped forward slightly. Miss Bella, your sister has requested an immediate mediation. She insists she has occupancy rights based on past residence. I cut him off. She lived here for 4 days. A residence is a residence, Olivia snapped. My father came onto the porch behind me. No, he said firmly. You were never residents. You invaded. Olivia's face twisted. You're taking her side? Again? Mom joined us, her hands shaking. Olivia, please stop this. We're exhausted. We're scared. We don't want a fight. Then give me my share, Olivia shouted. My half of the house, my inheritance, my right. I stared at her. Her, share of the house? Inheritance? Rights? She wanted money. That's what this was always about. There is no half, I said quietly. There is no inheritance to divide. The trust isn't a will. You were never a beneficiary. The lawyer cleared his throat. If we could all step inside to discuss. No, I said sharply. You are not entering this home without permission, and you will not intimidate my parents on their property. He scoffed. Oh my God, listen to her. She thinks she's some kind of superhero. I'm not a superhero. I'm the trustee. Legally, that's all. The lawyer held up a folder. Then you won't mind responding to these papers. I stepped forward. I do mind, and you'll email anything you need to send.